John Bradshaw, you are so famous now and so successful. Now, you're really one of America's renowned therapists. These days, there's no question about it. Even you have problems with self-esteem?
Oh, boy, you bet I do. I have lots of times in my life where it's transitory now as opposed to what it used to be. But, yes, sir, I can really get scared.
They are going to see. They see us all the time. They don't hear us because now we went nice. Well,
that's great.
Okay, now I'm going. Yeah. John, you know that the title of this program is Never Too Late, which I think is very appropriate for the topic you and I are discussing about self-esteem. Tell me a little about what exactly do you mean by self-esteem?
Well, it's self-esteem means that you value yourself, that you can be alone with yourself and still feel good about yourself. The feel good about yourself is an important part of it.
Yes.
That you have confidence in yourself.
Why is it that so many people don't feel good about themselves?
Well, you know, we've been raised in patriarchy. I mean, we've been raised with a set of rules that believes in crushing a child's will at an early age. We don't like willful children. And I think that we're beginning to understand now in a way we never have before.
That's very interesting. So it really all starts very, very early in life. I now have a 2-year-old grandson.
I know,
it's
that's
very interesting
great.
when you say, what happens? What happens with that will? How in the non-successful family, how is it broken? What happens?
Well, you know that you've got that little 2-year-old, and boy, I mean, they can be something because they're into holding on and letting go, and yet somehow you've got to put structure there for him or her.
Right.
You have to put structure there, but it has to be a structure that allows them to touch and explore and too much shaming, too much don't, and then suddenly everything becomes frightening to the child.
Yeah. Your father, you told us, was an alcoholic, and your mother really expected you to take that role of the man of the house. That must have been very, very difficult. How did it affect you?
Well, when I was a child, I was sort of my mother's favorite, so I didn't realize that really I was not getting to have a childhood. I mean, I was selling papers at 9 years old, and there's some good things about that. I mean, I've learned some good skills out of that, but at the same time, I didn't get to be a child. It's very important to get to be a child when you're a child.
You mean the responsibility they put on you was more the responsibility of a much
of an
older
adult. Yeah. Of an adult. I mean, I was a breadwinner. I was giving my brother an allowance at 11 and 12 years old. I mean, I was like a little parent to him, an emotional spouse to my mother, and you know, my mother was doing the best she knew how to do, but my dad was an alcoholic. He was real irresponsible. So it deprived me of being able to be a child.
Yeah, you felt ashamed?
I felt ashamed. We didn't have a car. We moved 10 times in 14 years. I remember going to church on Sunday, and we were kind of in a church that was in a wealthier neighborhood, and
so everybody knew about that.
Well, you'd get off the bus and people would see you, and everybody else had a car.
Right.
So that was something that was very shaming. I felt ashamed of it.
Was it a question also of being like out of control because you felt that there are things happening that you had no control over?
Absolutely. I mean, I was a child. Here was my fate. Here was where I was born, and my dad was never predictable. We never knew what he was.
You know, John, I'm very interested in what you really espouse, because that's your theory, that our society expects people to measure up in some very unrealistic ways.
Yeah, I think that one of the ways we get shamed, we lose our self-esteem, is you leave your family, you go to school. First of all, if you're Jewish, if your color is different, if you're Catholic in a Protestant school, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're a minority, you notice that some kids have money and some don't. Very early on, you get into the size of your genitals. You get into the perfect 10. Some girls are pretty, some boys are good athletes. You get measured by a straight 100.
Yeah. Was there something that you felt you didn't measure up
Well,
when you were growing
I
up?
laughed about that. I mean, I can remember immediately thinking my penis wasn't big enough. You know, I mean, here we are in the locker room, and
And everybody looks.
Well, the guys who were well endowed love to walk around, you know, and the rest of us are over hiding in the corner. But you're getting it, and you know, as a therapist, I've had more people, women, say, you know, I don't think, you know, I didn't develop fast, and I was never the pretty girl, or guys saying to me, you know, I don't think I'm big enough. That's a terrible thing to have people be measured like that.
You know, that's very interesting, because it used to be that older people were valued. We gave them respect. We expected them to give us advice. Not true anymore. Because something about that self-esteem, what is happening when the workplace tells them, goodbye, you are over the hill, go.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible thing that's been done, and it's all that youth and beauty and handsome, and as you grow older, you can't sustain that youthful look. I think we ought to get back to cherishing our older people. We shouldn't retire people when we do, because sometimes you have your best people. There are years of experience there.
And we don't use it.
And we don't
I'm
use it.
going to use you as my therapist.
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult? Here I'm pretty intelligent, and people have told me my whole life, all right, you are okay, but you are too short. What should I do? I shouldn't listen to them?
Well, it's a hard thing to deal with, because I think you've got to develop some inner voices that say, you know, I'm perfectly adequate as I am, and have somebody, maybe several people in your life, that you look in their faith and you're perfectly okay just the way you are. I'll guarantee you, I'll start it. I'll start it right now.
Who was that for you? That's very interesting. Some people
you know, when I recovered from my alcoholism, I got in a group, a 12-step group, and I made some friends that are now in a support group with me 28 years later.
The same friends?
The same friends. There's 4 of us. And like we share. We have a weekly meeting when I'm home, and we share, and they give me feedback. You know, like I'll say.
Give me an example.
Well, I'll say I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling overwhelmed, and we try to give each other feeling feedback. You know, they'll say, "Well, you don't look overwhelmed. You look a little scared right now, John," or "I'm feeling bad about myself," and they might say, "Well, listen, you know, I want to tell you what I feel about you," and that's really wonderful.
But what they feel about you, is it then that reflection always positive, or is it sometimes saying, John, in this respect, in this story, you were wrong?
Yes, they will tell the truth. You know, what we try to do is we try to feed, you know, I might say, oh, I'm okay with that. And someone might say, well, you don't look okay with that. Your hands all tight, and you're, you know, you're breathing, or you're talking high. We like to give honest feedback, and it's nice to have friends that will give you honest feedback, but not make interpretations of you. See, where we get in trouble is, well, you're insecure. No, I could say, you know, your hands were shaking when you talked, and your mouth was open. You looked afraid. See, that's a sensory-based information.
And that's like a mirror that gives you that kind of reflection, but they do it in a way that you can trust them.
Yes, yes. And we begin our life with a mirror. The primal scene is looking into mother's face. And so when our esteem is broken, that bridge is broken between mom and child, then I need something to restore that bridge. So it's very important to have people in my life.
The people that are in that group, are you ever worried that they will talk about what happens in the group outside at a cocktail party?
No, because we've really made a commitment of confidentiality to each other. I mean, it's like, I think you have to be careful about a group you're in, but once you've made a decision to trust it, then you have to go all the way with that.
Now, are you saying that even though you had some problems with alcohol, you're saying that people can change even in their 60s and 70s?
Oh, absolutely.